Hello and welcome along to Penwith Radio. I'm Rob Jenkins and this is Lasting Memories, part of the All Our Stories project in association with the Heritage Lottery Fund.
This is Sally Peterson for Penwith Radio for the Heritage Lottery Fund. Music and Cornwall have always gone together, and the music scene in Cornwall is vibrant and lively, with all kinds of different people creating and making their music. Musician Joe Dworniak and his partner Vicki Daniels moved to the area about 8 years ago, where they bought a wonderful Georgian house in Penzance and converted the stables at the back of the house into a state-of-the-art recording studio. They work under the name Riverfish Music, where they have the studios, Riverfish Studios, and their own record label. And Joe's worked with a variety of musicians from all over the world, and also many local musicians who go to record and work with him in the studio. He came to Penwith Radio to talk to me about the album he'd made with his partner Chris Lapser and their band Dworniak Bone Lapser. It's a very unusual name for a band. What made you, I suppose, just putting your names together?
Exactly. Well, band names, it's a bit of a quagmire, really, thinking about a band name. I think I've probably spent about 30 years trying to think of the right band name. And it's a lot easier if you just put your names together.
Yes,
so
it's a bit like naming a ship or a boat.
Yeah, somebody said it sounded like a firm of solicitors.
Quite exotic.
You're not a firm of solicitors, yeah. Well, that's right. Joe's name's Polish.
Polish, yeah.
Polish-Irish. And Greg Bone, he's the other member in the band.
Mm-hmm.
And he, I think his name is where's he from?
From Hartlepool.
Hartlepool.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was Latvian.
And mother's Irish.
Mother's Irish, yeah.
It's very exotic, isn't it? You've been in the band since 2010, and you're all full-time musicians. So there are how many? Well, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of you in the band.
That's right. Yeah, it's a big old unit.
But dotted all over the country.
Yes.
Yeah, mainly London, southwest.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I'm Hampshire now.
That's right.
That's a bit nearer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you've always come down here to record, have you?
Well, since Joe and Vicki built Riverfish, then yeah, I mean it's a fantastic place to come and work.
It's lovely.
And we've all really enjoyed coming down, because often what we've done is come down for sort of 3-4 weeks at a time in a block, and then the various members of the band come down and you do the recordings of. So we started off with Danny Cummings doing the drums, which was quite an experience.
Very colourful character.
I did see you play at the Acorn. It's about a year ago now, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
It was in March this year.
Yeah, we were filming it as well, so we're just getting around to finishing all the editing of it. But no, we were well happy with it and we really enjoyed it.
We had a guy called Mick Painter, who is, I can't remember actually, for the Gorseth Kernow. You know,
yes. Yes.
And he's a bard of
the bard.
Yeah. And there was another chap, I think it was Les Merton, and they were brilliant. It was great because you had the Cornish dialect poetry and lots of old tales, and you had their translations of it and what have you. So it was really very, very good fun. Some of it was funny and some of it was very moving.
So I'm going to play a track from your album, and this is from the first track. I may not play the whole of the first track because, as you said, it's 12 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
But this is Mortal Man.
To that's in your mind, you would lead a life of a different kind. Now your dreams are left in disarray. The spectre of your destiny is creeping into play. You never really took the chance to stop and think about your life. All the wasted years cut into you like a knife. Swept off your feet, caught in a current you cannot withstand. No one to rescue you, no one to lend a helping hand. You're a mortal man. That the day is not yet done. Like the best is yet to come. Architecture of your prison is a mirror perfectly consumed. We all need love, gift from God above. Sing it! Hey! What can we just live our lives? 'Cause we will never get this chance again. Oh, we've just got to live our lives. 'Cause we will never live these lives again. So don't look down. Don't let them make you break down. Roll with the jokers and the clowns. They wanna give you a fake crown, lead you out of your depth, watch you drown. They put you in a psycho gown, and while they teach you to kiss the frown, you're 1,000 miles from a loading heart, your hometown. Joy in birth, pain in death, earth to earth. Draw another breath. Joy in birth, pain in death. Never said the things you meant to, put it off to another day. Never really took that chance, you were too scared of what they'd say.
That is Mortal Man from Dvorniak Bone Lapser's CD. And is it your initial launch CD, this one?
Yes, it's our first ever album.
Actually, as Dvorniak
Yes,
Bone Lapser,
yeah,
this
definitely.
is your
That's the launch
first
album.
ever CD. Now, that's a very evocative, beautiful track. And Robert Wyatt was playing trumpet on that.
Yeah.
How did you get him involved in the band?
The producer, Matt Kemp, he had worked with him, many years ago on an album, fantastic album called Donde Está.
We originally, well, we're all of us in the band are Robert Wyatt fans.
Yeah,
And because we knew that Matt Kemp had worked with him, I had an idea in Mortal Man that there should be a spoken word part in its original concept. That's what I thought, and I had the slot all worked out, and I thought, right, who are we going to get to do it? And heroes Robert Wyatt. So we all sat down in the studio and worked out, right, how are we going to approach it, because it's a big thing for Matt to write to Robert and ask him to be on the album, and we were sure that he was going to say no, and we sent out this section of the American Declaration of Independence, which, if you read it, then it's just the most amazing statement of intent about how they're going to govern their country, how they want to live, how they're going to interact as human beings. And we thought, wow, it's fantastic as a contrast to where that country is at the moment. So, and to ask Robert to do it, who's I think a pretty well-known communist. So there was lots of juxtapositions artistically about why we wanted him to do that. So we sent it up to him and waited for a response with bated breath. And literally the next day, we were in the studio, and Matt's phone went, and he just held it up to everybody. And there on the screen, it was Robert Wyatt's number. And so out he went, and 5 minutes later he came back and said, "Yeah, we're right. He's not going to do it." So he said, I think he said something like, there's no way that I'm going to read anything to do with the American Declaration of Independence. He said, I understand the positioning of what you're trying to do and all the rest of it. He said, but the only thing to the right of that is Mein Kampf or something. He said, it was worse to that effect anyway. But he said, fantastically, he said, I love the track. Is it okay if I play trumpet on it? And as the trumpet is one of his signature instruments then, and we were absolutely blown away and elated. There was a real buzz, obviously, in the studio at the time.
That is fun. So that's better than having him reading the piece of prose, isn't it?
But yeah, I mean, it's an incredible compliment as well for the band, because Robert, toured the States with Hendrix, and is obviously, is an exceptional hero.
Fantastic
of UK
musician.
music. Yeah.
Incredible.
And founding member of Soft Machine.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Did he come to Penzance to play the trumpet?
No, Matt went up with his recording facility, which he has, portable recording facility, and did it all up there at Robert's house.
It's up in Lincolnshire. Yeah.
Oh, that's really exciting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Is he just on that one track, Mortal Man?
Yeah, we wouldn't have him on any others because, we're...
That's the one he wanted to do.
No, it's just the one track.
Just the one. What would you say your influences have been in this album? Because it's got an element of Pink Floyd in there somewhere. It's quite
really
derivative of some of the groups from that time.
Yes, definitely, in format.
But it's got its own personality as well.
Yeah.
What are your main influences?
Well, definitely a period of time was very formative for both Joe and I think, was the sort of late 60s, early 70s, when you're really starting to become aware of music and the music that's going on around you. And at that time, obviously, there was a lot of concept album work going on. Bands like Genesis and Yes, and for Joe, I think, you were...
Yeah, well, down to Santana, not opposite side, different side, but long tracks, lots of movements through them,
Definitely, and those... There was a lot of freedom in the studio and in the business at that time that allowed people to do songs which weren't to necessarily a set format. I remember watching that programme just a few weeks ago about Mike Oldfield, the making of Tubular Bells, and that album in its own right had an amazing influence on me, because it was literally one side of music doing the same hook all the way through, but in different formats and with fantastic build and pathos. So that was a great track. But when that album came out, Richard Branson took it round all of the major record companies, and they all said, yeah, we'll sign Mike Oldfield, but we want some vocals on it. It's rubbish without vocals. So yeah.
That shows how short-sighted they were. They didn't realise.
Exactly. And also, from our point of view, I think that format of longer songs and allowing a greater amount of time to build a musical landscape to evoke the issues that you want to approach as an artist is something that we don't feel afraid to explore again. And I think there were business reasons for that, for the disappearance. Joe and I were talking about it yesterday. The industry moved away, didn't it, in the sort of late 70s from that longer song format, allowing the artists to work in that. Suddenly punk came along, and most of those bands never really sort of, carried on.
Yes, that's true, because once again tracks became short, didn't they?
Totally, although their records kept selling.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, I mean, look at Roger Waters' The Wall. I think last year, probably getting all my figures wrong, but I think last year, The Wall, which was recorded in 1981, was the biggest grossing North American tour. It grossed something like 470 million. It's quite amazing, really, when you think about it. It's over 30 years old. But yeah, citing Pink Floyd as an influence is, I mean, to be compared is fantastic. That's really flattering, and we wouldn't disagree that there's definitely some Floyd influence. But there's also stuff like Weather Report and Genesis and Yes, and all of those sort of great.
Yeah, because I mean, as a band, we all come from slightly different disciplines, of music and likes of music. And that's what we love, because we're making music and songs, But because we're all from different walks of life, as well, and we've only met now, it's great fusing those different influences together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's something I was going to ask you, actually. Had all the band members met long before 2010? Or did you actually come together around that time and all decide, hey, let's get together and form a band?
No, I met Joe I was making a solo album in 2006 with Matt Kemp, who Joe has worked with for many years. 25 odd. And on that solo album, we were inviting other artists to come in and work. Joe played bass on that album. It was an album called Purple and Green. And not only was a brilliant bass player, but he was the only guy I'd ever met that could drink more than me. So I thought we were going to get on right from the start.
Exactly.
And how about some of the other band members? What about Greg?
Greg came in at the same time, and him and I became really good friends very quickly. I mean, he's the most incredible guitarist, and the guitar is, as well as singing, is my choice of instrument. So I was just I was blown away with the ability of both Joe and Greg, and the three of us all hit it off really well. And with Matt as producer of that album, it was a very easy step then as the friendships developed, to say, right, okay, well, why don't we all, join together as a band?
Exactly, because Matt was the main person that brought us together, as it were. Because
the pivotal element in the whole thing.
Exactly.
And of course, Joe, you've worked with all kinds of different people in your musical career, haven't you?
Yes.
Just list a few of them, just for fun. Trying to remember.
Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney, yes.
Don't forget Mahmood.
Aswad. Duran. God, I'm useless when I try to remember.
And I haven't got your biography sitting in front of me, so I can't prompt you.
Family Man Barrett from Bob Marley. Yeah. Did an album with him. That was amazing. My mind goes blank.
Well, Green and Purple, you were on
Pasadena's. That was great fun.
Have you ever had anything to do with...
Kirsty
MacColl, yeah. Santana? No, I would have liked to.
You turned him down, right?
Yeah, I worked with his brother. I worked with his brother, Chico. He was also he was a percussion player. That's right. That was many years ago. Yeah, no, quite a large amount.
We're up to it.
John Fox from Ultravox. He was the founder member. Did a few albums with him.
It's wonderful that you've brought your musical experience down to Penzance, and that you've set up the studio there as well, because you were all recording at Riverfish.
Yes, absolutely.
In Penzance.
Yeah.
What's it like coming? I think I asked you this.
It's rubbish.
Earlier on. What's it like coming down to Penzance to record an album? Do you find it a very conducive place to creativity?
Well, the studio is amazing. It's got an incredible vibe to it for so many different reasons. And what Joe and Vicki have done there is super, super special. This coach house has, I think it's 200 years old, is it, Joe?
Yes, coming up to.
and it's got very, very thick granite walls. And the way in which they've treated that acoustically by refurbishing the rest of the building around it makes an incredible sound. I mean, when Danny came down with the drums, we had a full sonor drum kit in the live room, 14 mics around it. It was going to be big and powerful, but the room itself is not much bigger than the studio, your studio here, which is difficult for people to see on the what's the dimensions? Probably about 4.5 meters by 3.5 or something.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
Maybe a bit bigger.
4x4.
Yeah,
more or less.
4x4.
4x4. I mean, we were unsure. We had the space to work in, so we weren't sure whether it's going to sound great or not. Although I've had a lot of experience, many studios in London, and building them, and all different shapes and sizes. So this particular size was, I wonder if we're going to get anything out of it. But so when Danny came down with the drums, because it's quite a low ceiling as well, so there's not a lot of height, but there's a lot of great acoustics, and no, we were amazed at the sound. Obviously, it was down to Matt as well because he's a brilliant engineer.
Yes.
But the incredible, lucky,
Yes, very lucky.
In one sense.
There was a brilliant affirmation of that when we went over to watch Guy Fletcher, who is Mark Knopfler's keyboard player. Of course, Danny used to be the drummer for Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler on tour. So we know, he knows a thing or two about drumming.
Yeah.
And so we did the track. And we gave a copy of the album to Guy when we were over at this gig. And literally 9 o'clock the next morning, I got an email from Guy Fletcher saying, "Wow, I love that album. It's brilliant. Reminds me of all sorts of things. Is that Danny playing the drums? And where did you record the drums? Because I want to know about that drum sound." And that's
a real compliment, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
fantastic.
Yeah. So the room is fantastic, but the whole studio, the vibe. I mean, it's cluttered with all sorts of old vintage gear, which people tell me is great to record with. I mean,
Oh, the best. But it's also it's half and half, and we've got all the top digital stuff in there, Pro Tools, the state of the art, but mixed with, very good vintage Valve stuff, and which gives the warm sound and all the rest of it. So
yes, it's nice to have that combination.
Exactly,
the ability to do that.
Totally versatile.
The only thing is, it's got this incredibly distracting, beautiful view over Mounts Bay and the sort of tops of palm trees. And it's like people spend a lot of time gazing at it. You think, look, I mean, you're trying to make an album here. So
I've seen some.
That's the only downside, really.
I quite often get in there at 6 in the morning. Especially at the moment, the sun's coming up around 7:15, 7:30, and you just see it rise, when on the right day, and it's incredible.
The only rule I don't like, Sally, is that you're not allowed to have a drink until the something called the Solonian comes in.
It's about 7 o'clock.
And
that's gin and tonic time.
That's right. You can see the top mast. You see. So around about sort of 5:30, we're all looking over a little bit over towards the.
So you don't need a clock in the studio.
I still use that at home now with my wife, who would say, "I think the Solonian's in."
One reason for moving down here is because we were looking for. We had a place in Bedfordshire that didn't have potential to put a studio into, so we moved down here and we've just found this place in Penzance, and we just thought, wow, this is amazing, and it's perfect for it. And the space, so we just used the space and said, this is what we've got to work with, and we have to go for it because it's the perfect surrounding, perfect place to work, and it just worked beautifully.
Well, I was saying earlier as well that it's great to have your experience as a musician down here, because there aren't so many musicians in Cornwall who've worked with the huge variety of artists that you have. And of course, Joe, you spend a lot of time working with Spanish artists, don't you? How did you start working in Spain in the first place?
First of all, I was asked to do a tour there with the band that I was in, which was a band called Shake Shake back in 1981, I think. And we had a #1 independent track then, back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And we asked to do a tour in Spain. And when we got to Madrid, we needed a backline set up, and we worked with a band called Radio Futura, and they lent us their equipment, basically. we did the gig, and afterwards they said, would you like to work on one of our songs, in production sort of role? And so we did that, and they loved it, and then they said, do you want to produce our next album? So we went on to do that. That was me and Duncan Bridgman. We were just two members of the band. So we went on to do that, and then that went very well. They asked me back to do their third album, and from then on, I've just been working out there for the last 25 years.
And now getting people to come from Spain over to here to record as well.
Exactly. Yep. They've had a few bands over, and they love it. And they often ring me up, say, we want to come back. Obviously I take them to all the great sites, Porthcurno and, beautiful places.
The Minack was amazing when we came down en masse. When did we start the hour? It was about 2010, summer 2010. And going over to the Minack for the first time is quite something on a summer's evening to watch. The great thing there, of course, is if the performance is not to your liking, you get to watch a fantastic sunset anyway.
Yes, you can watch the sunset. Sometimes there are dolphins. I've never actually seen the dolphins there, but I've heard of people who've been watching performances and seen dolphins in the distance.
Yeah.
Wow.
So even if, as you say, if it's not a very good production,
good place
you've got something to entertain you.
Put the Tempest on if it's a rainy evening.
Yes, it's the most amazing place, isn't
it?
Yeah.
I think it should be one of the 7 wonders of the world, or the eighth wonder.
Totally.
It's definitely a wonder of Cornwall. No, I loved it over there. We'd like to play out there at some stage. Be a great place.
They do more concerts now than they used to.
Yeah, so
they had Suzanne Vega there last year.
Yeah.
And Seth Lakeman's played at the Minack.
Right, he's great.
So they do quite a few concerts now.
Katie Tunstall played
Katie
it this
Tunstall, that was it. Yes,
yeah.
She did. She played there this summer.
Right.
Fantastic.
So they are doing more and more of those sort of bookings. And then, of course, the Eden Project do the Eden sessions.
Yes. Oh, that'd be another. Greg's played there a couple of times, I think, with various friends. But yeah, that would be another lovely place to do.
They've been having some very good bands.
Yeah.
We went to see Jessie J at the Eden Project this year.
What a voice.
Okay.
She was great.
She's got an incredible voice, hasn't she?
Yeah.
And so much energy, so much positive energy.
Yeah.
It's just wonderful.
Yeah,
She was
brilliant.
very, very good. What are you planning to do with the band? You're working on your second album now.
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the reasons why I'm down. We're just scoping out. We've got it pretty much the songs all written and largely, I think, in the right format. And so what happens is the process in the band is I pretty much do that preparation, the writing and the lyrics of it. But then, as with lots of bands, I present it to Joe and Greg, Matt, and then it completely changes. Then it gets good. So, but no, as a fact, somebody kicks it off, and that's normally me. And
so,
then
Chris, do you have the concept of the tune and the lyrics, or just the lyrics? 'Cause so often in the songwriting teams, somebody does the music, somebody does the lyrics.
No, I start off with pretty much I have a pretty rigid idea about how to about what the format is, and that's a writing style, and the magic of it for me is I don't hear all of the things that Joe and Greg hear. I just don't hear that. So I get my basic thing is the vocal melody and the lyrics and the lyrical idea, building a picture, and then you start off with one song. And on this next album, it's a little bit more of a folky vibe, and then the journey begins from there. So when I present it to Joe, you can literally see him that the cogs are turning over, and it's sort of you're wondering what he's gonna do with that canvas that you present him with, and that's how it is. And then gradually over a sort of 4 to 5 month period, those extra songs come out, and you then have built your landscape for the album, and then I come down and we start getting stuck into it.
And is that the stage you're at now with the second album?
Yeah.
You've done the building of the songs.
Yeah.
And now
we've decided that we've got I think there are 6 songs. It's going to be about our target for an album. We think is somewhere between 40 and 45 minutes of music. That's what we think suits an album format. So we've got those. We've got one extra so that we can kick one out if we need to, and we've decided well, Greg's on tour actually at the moment. He's working, so he hasn't had much of a hand in it. But Matt and Joe and I have decided that those songs are strong enough and worthy enough to stick on an album. So we've got our material sorted out. So yeah, that's the next thing. And in the meantime, as a band, we've got our new sort of mentor manager, Rob Webb, who is going to help us start talking to record labels and promoters, and we're building content for our website, dvorniakboneLapser.com, and the Facebook page and all that kind of stuff that goes into trying to get rid of some of the inertia and find a way to keep making a living out of making music.
Have you got any gigs lined up?
Well, we're told that the best thing to do before that is to get all the website content up and to get the Facebook stuff going, get a bit of a buzz going, and then we'll do showcases probably in London. But we definitely want to do some more gigs down here, and we love playing the Acorn. It's fantastic. It's a great venue.
It's a good little venue, isn't it?
Oh, superb.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And to think that
Good acoustics as well.
Great bar.
that nearly went down a few years ago.
Did it really?
Yes, they ran out of money, but
Yeah.
the team of people got behind it, and it's transformed, really.
Well, Vanessa, who was Vanessa, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That we were dealing with, was brilliant.
And Colin Rogers was very behind keeping it going. He used to be in charge of the Objective One funding down here,
Okay.
and he got behind the Acorn. I think he's chairman of the
Right.
Oh, wow, great.
They're doing a lot there. Actually, Mike Scott was down here
Yeah.
earlier in the year.
Well, Melvin Duffy, who plays pedal steel for us, quite often goes on tour with the Waterboys as a pedal steel player and a supporting guitarist. He's quite a character, I understand, Mike Scott.
Yes, he's quite a character. He's always been a bit of a hero of mine. Maybe in the
Great
way
songwriter.
that Robert White is a hero of yours. I don't know.
Definitely.
Completely.
Oh, yeah.
But I wish you a lot of luck with this album and the next one, because presumably when you start to do the whole website thing and push forward, you'll be working with this album and the next one?
Yes.
Or will you be concentrating on the one that you're about to record?
No, I think we will have to push both.
Yeah.
It's nice to have something in the slot for new material. And as and when we start talking to record labels and what have you, they can see there's a body of work in progress as well as some stuff that we've already done. So, but yeah, no, thanks.
And that's an important thing for us, is that we've got the time at the moment to get that body of work together and not under duress or we need this, we need that. We can do it in a safe sort of environment rather than scared enviorment.
I don't think
Yes.
we'll ever go. We're never, whatever happens, we're never going to fall into a category of working in to order.
No.
We took our time with doing that first album, and it really paid off.
Well, that's obviously the good thing about having the time to build up, as you say, a body of work, rather
Yeah.
than suddenly be told you've got an album to do. Then you
Yeah.
have to go away and think of something, and maybe you wouldn't create something as good as the work that you've had time to.
Yeah, because
build
there
up.
are other pressures that suddenly come in, and the manager or the tour manager is saying, right, you've got these gigs lined up. It's really important. Okay, but you've only got this amount of time to get the tracks done. Then suddenly the pressure becomes, okay, you have to make decisions, and the decisions become a little bit more difficult or more stressed.
And the
rather
work
than-
might
Yeah.
not be as original then.
Yeah.
The guy from Pet Shop Boys was talking about their life and how they'd been successful. And he said exactly that by the time they got the record deals, they had built up a huge body of work behind them. So they were
right.
able to just go forward with it rather than get stressed
Brilliant.
by having to create more music to
Yes,
order.
exactly.
That
Yeah,
sounds as if you're going about it the right way.
Well, it's a very enjoyable way of doing it. None of us need to be persuaded or to have an excuse to come down to stay with Joe and Vicki, because it really is very special. It's lovely, and it's a great vibe because we often stay in the house, and everybody that comes down just immediately loves it. So it's a delight, really. Great way.
Fantastic. I'm going to play one more track,
Okay,
Fingers Pointing at the Moon.
great.
Lovely.
Okay.
And thank you so much for coming in. Good luck
Thanks,
with it.
Sally.
That was lovely.
Thank you very much.
And that's a section of track 9 on their album Fingers Pointing at the Moon, with the voice of Chris Lapser. And thank you very much to both of them for coming into the studio. I'm talking to Vicki Daniels. I've got Vicki here in the studio. Hello, Vicki. Welcome.
Hi, Sally.
Vicki's here from Riverfish Music, or Riverfish Studios. They're a record label and a local studio in Penwith. And you've been here before to talk to us about your work, haven't you?
Yeah, it was lovely to see you. I can't even remember how long ago it was now. It was quite some time ago, and I think we mainly talked about a Spanish pianist artist called David Gomez.
Yes.
And we finished the recording, and we were kind of getting ready to, kind of the whole release process, really. But it's taken quite some time.
How long has it taken to make this particular album?
Well, the album itself didn't actually take that long at all, and it was done a couple of years ago, pretty much now. But the actual process in terms of us and our business and getting ready for the release, finding a digital distributor, going through the whole kind of negotiation process, and that's what seems to have taken an awfully long time.
Yes, there's so much to do.
There's so much to do when there's so few people within the team, as it were,
Yes.
which is mainly Joe and I.
Yes.
And we're kind of left brain, right brain. Joe does all the creative and I do everything else. So, it's been challenging, but hey, we're still here, and
Yes.
we're still smiling, and
the sun is shining.
And the sun is shining, and we love Cornwall.
It's quite hard sometimes to get things off the ground in Cornwall, isn't it? It can be a bit more difficult, partly because of the distance from everywhere else, and I suppose because of certain lack of funding and that sort of thing. It can be a bit tougher down here.
Yeah, it can. But you know what? I'm sure, really, if you really were to unpick things in another town or city, even in London, I mean, you've got so much competition, obviously, and things in London, but there's all the businesses. But I'm sure it's always difficult. And at the moment, there's an awful lot of help in Cornwall.
Yes.
I've just been part, and in fact, pretty much, I think from October, I think I signed up to the programme with Unlocking Potential, and it was incredible, and I couldn't sing their praises enough. They've been amazing. I've been to quite a few seminars and kind of events, like one-day events, where they've had keynote speakers. I've also been part of what they call their Fast Forward program. I think it's called Fast Forward or Fast Forward Growth or something like that. And you get like 12 hours of kind of, it's almost like mentoring, and it's within I think they used to call it a learning group, and it's within a small team, so you meet a few other businesses. It was amazing.
And that is called Unlocking Potential.
Unlocking Potential.
So if you put that into a search engine, you'll find it.
Absolutely, Unlocking Potential in Cornwall.
In Cornwall.
There's a number of different sections, because they have a graduate section, and I think they call it Graduate Gateway and all these other things. But anyone I could recommend, anyone who's got a business idea, or a small business who's just starting out, or even a thriving business, get on the computer, look at Unlocking Potential and tap in, because I think the funding's there till 2015. Amazing.
Well, you were saying that it's quite hard about getting things off the ground with just the two of us, and I suppose linking in with people like that gives you a lot of support, and just the backup, people you can bounce ideas off.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
generally makes you feel supported and able to keep going with projects when they get a bit bogged down.
Absolutely, and as you know, that's the thing. It's sometimes it's hard to see the wood for the trees for all the things that one has to do. Yeah, it was hugely valuable. I mean, it's what I would call a money can't buy experience.
But back to your music and your work with Joe. Of course, Joe has a very good musical pedigree, doesn't he? Could you remind us of a few things that he's done?
Well, he's been pretty much since leaving school, actually. That's all. In fact, that's all he's ever done. He's what I would call one of the lucky few who knew what he wanted to do pretty much from a very, very young age. From the age of 4, he was always only destined to do music. And he's worked with incredible people from Paul McCartney, Paul Weller, in his years as a bass player and a sound engineer and a record producer. And in Spain, he's had a kind of almost a 25 year, probably 20 to 25 year, I can't give you the exact, I can't remember, sorry, year history with working with some of the most credible bands in Spain, a group called Radio Futura, who I think they were going from the very late 70s, just post-Franco, basically, terms. And the music industry in Spain was very, very young. And they were kind of punk So they were very, very influential in terms of young music for the kids out there. And they've just celebrated with their 25th anniversary. And Joe was asked by Sony Spain to do the remix. It was like a 3-pack presentation box, and Joe was asked to do a remix of a 1987 live recording that they'd done in some gig, and then they packaged a couple of other bits and pieces and things, basically an album that he'd produced at the time. So yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Lots of other artists, Kiko Veneno, Jarabe de Palo, and in the UK, Mr. Yodeland. Gosh, you know what? It's always hard when to try and think of people. Lenny Henry, Duran Duran, ABC. The list is quite extensive. And if you went to his website, you could see his what do they call it?
CV.
Discography.
Yes, his discography. That's a difficult word to say.
Yes, it is.
And of course, Joe's surname is Dorniak, so Joe Dorniak, a very interesting name.
Yes, he's Polish. He's half Polish and half Irish. And so the website is Joe, Joe, Dvorniak, which is not how you think. It's DWORNIAK.com.
Well, so do look him up and see. We're going to hear a little bit of the music, which is by David Gomez.
Yes, very cute Spanish guy.
He's extremely handsome, I would say, looking at that picture.
I've yet to meet a woman who doesn't go, oh my God, look at his eyes. They are so blue. It's just, incredible. And with dark hair as well, it's kind of like, wow.
He looks very, very good
Suave.
looking indeed. So I'm sure that can't do anything but help him.
Yes, exactly.
Not that it should make any difference to anything.
Of course it doesn't.
But when you look at things like Britain's Got Talent, and it always seems to make a difference, doesn't it?
It does, exactly.
You want to be in a boy band, it does help.
It does.
And of course, David is not at all the kind of musician who would ever be in a boy band. What's his musical history?
Well, he's been a pianist. I think that I can't remember what he did after he left school and whatever. But he's basically went and studied in Amsterdam. I don't. Personally, as I don't have his biography here, I can't actually tell you who he studied under. He's also travelled the world and performed in Carnegie Hall. He's played in Sydney. He's played in China. Most of the Latin American countries.
So basically as a classical pianist?
As a classical pianist, yes. He has actually put out one album before, not with us, pre-us, quite a few years ago now. And so this, in effect, is actually his second album, although this is his first with us.
Right, well, I'm going to play a track from this, which is called 16 Years Old, and we'll listen to that now. that was David Gomez, and that was called 16 Years Old, and that is put out by Riverfish Music. Tell me a little bit more about David. You mentioned something about his concerts, Vicki.
Yeah, it's he developed a concept for a concert called One Piano and 200 Candles. It's David is I mean, I don't know how unusual it is, but David loves to perform in relative darkness, and obviously candles is great because it's kind of very atmospheric. I think his reasoning behind, but I could be corrected if I'm wrong. I apologise, David. But his reasoning is because people then really focus on the music rather than, him necessarily. Mm-hmm. And anyway, it's a concert that he performs in venues that are really, really interesting all over mainland Spain and Mallorca, Ibiza, Formentera. He might choose a lighthouse. He might choose an old historic ruin. Which could be a crumbling building. He's done the old train station in Mallorca, in Palma de Mallorca. So really, really interesting venues. A lot of them tend to be outside. Obviously, they benefit with a great summer. Mm-hmm. But also, I think some have been inside, but quite a lot are outside. And he doesn't always use necessarily real candles because of health and safety. Sometimes they're like... I don't know.
Solar candles.
They're solar candles, exactly. But they're in like little bags, and it's a beautiful concept, and it works really well.
It's a lovely idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
So one of the pieces that this piece I'm going to play some of is called The Island.
Yes.
And so we can just imagine a candlelit concert.
Yes, Mallorca, and also...
balmy sunshine.
Exactly, heat. Lovely Spanish wine.
Yes, sounds good. And lots of candles.
And it's the title track of the album.
Right. That's The Island, which is the title track of David Gomez's album. And playing with him there was a string quartet as well, with a cello, viola, violin, 2 violins. Any of the musicians in the string quartet well known? They've got lovely names. Linus Richards.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I don't know how well known they are. They're based in London. They weren't from down here. We actually recorded that part in a London studio. They're, very active session musicians and a string quartet, and they all, work independently as well as together. So I'm sure they've played on tons of albums.
Now, Joe has also been collaborating on a film project. You were saying he was working with a film director called Fernando de France, which is quite a name. What's he been doing on that?
Well, Fernando is a very old friend of ours, and he lives in Spain, in Coruña, which is in Galicia, beautiful part. And Fernando came up with this story idea for a short film because he'd seen this musician on the street who plays a number of pieces, but mainly it was an Eric Satie piece, and he was using a saw as the violin with a bow, and it's incredible. He came up with the story. He asked Joe also to do the soundtrack for the short film. So basically, Joe recreated the piece. He played the piece. He also did then the sound effects for the film, and then he also composed a piece. Well, actually, in truth, the piece, "The Summer Snow," was already composed, and Fernando loved it, and it worked really well. So that's part of the short film. The film's called Anania. I was just in London on Monday because we'd submitted it to the London Spanish Film Festival, which is a 2-week annual festival in London. It was the 9th festival, and it was screened before another, kind of main feature film, and it was great. Actually, amazing to see it on the big screen.
In a way, I suppose the tension in the film reflects the tension with the saw, because it's such an unusual idea to sit down and play a saw like that. It's incredible.
Absolutely. And this guy is, I mean, he's a musician first and foremost, but his name's Adriano, and he busks in Galicia, probably in other parts. I know somebody said that they'd seen him in San Sebastian. And Fernando was mesmerised as he happened to be in the town. He was drawn to the music. And so they followed the music, him and his partner, and they found him there. So they shot a little video, and then they approached him and then said, can we do a film? A little short film, and that the rest is history. And they've now formed a friendship, and I'm sure that other things will come. I mean, I know Fernando's wondered whether Joe would like to work with him, and Fernando's a great friend and a collaborative partner, and part of what we call part of our team.
Yes, well, it's a very lovely film. It's got a French feeling to it, hasn't it? Because it's got the long lingering shots,
yes,
and the tension building up with the dancer and the musician observing her.
Yes, absolutely.
And the development of their relationship. It's a very lovely piece. I was hoping you'd get it into the Cornwall Film Festival.
Yes, well, what happened is I'd only noticed about I think it was on some email or something about it, and actually it was just too late. I was a couple of days late. I did actually call and speak to someone who was very, very kind and said yes, I could, but Fernando at the time was in Mexico shooting, and there were a few technical questions that I needed that I couldn't answer, so sadly we missed that deadline. But from what I understand, you can actually submit short films. We'll submit some for next year.
Yes,
we'll probably do, we'll be brave and do the Sundance, and all kinds of others.
It's a very good little film. So I'm going to play the music from The Summer Snow, and this is a saw being played with a violin bow.
No, sorry. The film's called Anania. What you're going to be playing is called The Summer Snow, which is Joe's piece that he composed, which is the last piece.
Oh, so it doesn't have the saw in it?
No, that was the Eric Satie piece.
Yeah, so this is Joe's composition, soundtrack to go with the film The Summer Snow. and that is The Summer Snow, the music by Joe Dworniak from the film Anania, which has been produced with Fernando de France and Joe Dworniak, and is featuring the music of
Riverfish music.
Riverfish music and the chap with the saw.
Oh, yes, Adriano, exactly.
Adriano,
which
yes.
is the Eric Satie piece. In fact, we've just put the film now on YouTube, and we'll be starting to share it share the love, as it were. So please do, if anybody wants to go onto our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Riverfish Music TV.
Thank you very much for coming in, Vicki.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Sally.
I'm Sally Peterson, and you've been listening to Penwith Radio.
That's all for this edition of Lasting Memories, part of the All Our Stories project in association with the Heritage Lottery Fund.